Good morning. This is about the later live game day edition. Vikings, Saints, wild card round. My body's already shutting down. Hope you're doing well. It's a huge day. I am actually not just saying this for effect. I'm extremely nervous about the game. And I'll tell you why. I initially thought that there wasn't that great of a shot for the Vikings to win this game, mainly because, as we've seen this season, whenever there's a big spot, the coaches, namely Stefanski, pulls a Zimmer and perhaps either thinks too hard or too long and attempts to do something that he thinks the opposing team won't see coming, or he just, at the end of the day, consciously or subconsciously, doesn't have a lot of confidence in this Vikings offense doing what it does well, better than the other team is at stopping it. There could be a multitude of reasons for it. Football's not typically that simple. It could be matchups. It could be the defensive scheme they're running. If they're doing more man stuff, it's going to be hard to do the screen stuff. But there's ways around that. There's ways to get them into zone, ways to attack them when you see coverages that benefit you. I mean, that's why football is extremely complicated. That's why these guys tend to make a lot of money and essentially have a job for life when they get hired as a coordinator or a head coach. I know that may sound a little weird to some people, but as we're seeing right now, it's always the same coaches getting passed around. There's new guys coming up in the ranks, but a lot of these coaches have been coaches since I was little. Wade Phillips has coached how many places? Gary Kubiak has coached how many places? So I'm not simply, I think I haven't done the best job of explaining some of the caveats as to why they get away from what they're good at on offense and painting it more as just, and I haven't said this, but maybe I've implied it, that it's just stupidity or ignorance. I think there's reasons for it, but I think that especially when you get to the playoffs, again, at some point you're just going to have to enforce your will on the other team, and that doesn't mean just hitting your head against the wall and running a bunch of play action stuff, even though it's not working, like 10 in a row, sarcastically DiFilippo style, when he was running those sarcastic ass runs last season. But you're not going to beat the Saints if you don't play the type of offense that you've played at your peak this season. This offense, without Adam Thielen, was among the best in the league. Cousins was playing as an MVP candidate, at least in the circles of national and local media and people writing about it. His stats during that stretch bore that out. I've said this a million times, but he had eerily similar stats to Mahomes' stats in 2018, week 5 to week 10. So, the reason that I was initially really down about the game is because I had no faith that they learned their lesson, and I figured they would just go back to doing a bunch of shotgun spread stuff, and I really feel that they've learned their lesson, and maybe I'm just latching on to one or two quotes too heavily because I need to emotionally, but Zimmer and his reaction to the Monday Night Football debacle against the Packers, and essentially saying maybe we should probably get him out of the pocket so he's not just standing around so much. I really think that he understood it. I do think that he's keeps the offense an arm's length away, and he very well could have, sent one of his DeFilippian emails. Change the subject line from please run to please run some play action bootlegs and rollouts. Get Cousins out of the pocket. It'll make him a lot more comfortable. And you don't need to do that right away. I mean, if they run a similar game plan as to the one that they ran offensively in Dallas, I think they'll accomplish a couple things. I think, assuming they get the ball, well, whatever the first drive is, a long drive that ends in points, preferably a touchdown. Ooh, this is some spot. You guys writing this down? My plan for the game is for the Vikings to score a touchdown on the opening drive. You'll quiet the crowd down though if you're methodical. If you dink and dunk down the field. If you take a lot of time off the clock, you'll keep Breeze and company on the sidelines. You won't end up in a tit for tat sort of really high scoring game. That Dallas game felt like a shootout, but it was 28-24, something like that. It wasn't necessarily like the 49ers Saints game. And so hopefully they'll be able to make some hay with screens. If they can't, because the Saints are playing a lot of man, get Cousins out of the pocket anyway. Have him scramble for yards. They talked a lot about that earlier this season in Cousins having the confidence to do that, because he essentially said in 2018, a lot of the time, with all the coverage on Diggs and Thielen, there were a lot of opportunities for him to pick up 10, 15 yards on the ground because teams really don't fear Cousins in that way. And I think that they'll actually be able to find some opportunities there early in this game. And then that way they might switch back to zone. You get Cousins, or Cook rather, getting a lot of catches out of the backfield. I mean, Latavius Murray had 5 against them week 8 last year for like 56 yards. If you have Latavius Murray catching that many balls, I think that tells you a little bit about what the game plan was then. And while it's a different season, there's different players, the Saints defense is similar in how its strengths and weaknesses are to that team. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. They were first against the run in week 8 last year. They're 4th now, and they were in the low 20s against the pass, and it's the same thing now. So if you're not getting anything on the ground, go to screens. Screens all day. I have a lot of faith in Cook picking up yards that way. And just see what happens. Eli Apple's not playing. I'm sure Lattimore will be on Diggs, but Diggs played amazingly. Both Diggs and Thielen had over 100 yards and a touchdown in week 8 last season. So I am more confident about it. I don't want to get too hyperbolic about it or too emotional. I mean, if they do come out and they play like they did on Monday Night Football in terms of both execution and game plan, I mean, all bets are off. I know that obviously the Wolves came out and said their every intent is to do something. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do it. That means they intend to do it, barring further information. I could be crazy, but that's kind of how I felt about it. I don't call for people's jobs willy-nilly, and I wasn't even calling for anyone's job in my article or the shows that I've been doing. It was more of a, should we talk about it? Should we look at maybe getting some fresh eyes on the offense, maybe giving Kubiak more power over Stefanski? That could all work itself out. That's not the point. But I'm feeling strangely optimistic. I think Zimmer is at his best when he is able to communicate to the team that nobody believes in you. I'm sure they've been playing that NFL playoff preview video on repeat. There were the comments from the Saints player that essentially bashed Cousins and said, well, we don't know what Cousins we're going to get. Sometimes he looks like a functional quarterback, ... And Cousins, despite his buttoned up demeanor, is very feisty and fiery when he plays. And I think if everyone's been talking about the Minneapolis Miracle part, I could see Cousins just really wanting to win this game, not just for that reason, obviously, for other obvious reasons, but it'd be a huge statement game for him. It would quiet a lot of his critics. I'm sure they would still say, well, Case Keenum did it. But it is a huge opportunity for him. This is why the Vikings brought him in. Sure, they're the 6th seed, but that doesn't really... who cares? You know, it's still one team against another. It's still a team that's getting back Thielen, who is, you know, as close to 100% as he's been for the vast majority of the season. I mean, he's not even undergoing any sort of regular treatment on his hamstring anymore. I think they're going to come out firing to Thielen over and over and over again. Speaking of dinking and dunking, just get the ball in his hands as much as you can. Not to say that the Saints would be sleeping on him, but I think he's just kind of a forgotten guy right now across the NFL. So we will see. I feel really good about it, or about as good as I could. Obviously it's a terrifying prospect going up against Breeze and Michael Thomas. It would have been nice if instead of Treadwell, the Vikings would have drafted Thomas. I don't know. Some people called for that. I can't remember who. It was this really good-looking guy who had let himself go. Liked to wear gray hats that had slogans from like 2 years prior. Asymmetrical face, me. But that's neither here nor there. I just like to pat myself on the back when I'm right about one of my takes, because there's about 3 of them I've been right about in 5 years of doing this. So we shall see. I don't know. I don't. I'm not sure if the chat or the comment function on this is working as well, or if people are just tuning out my sassy brand of pessimism. But I was hoping to see what your guys' thoughts were on the game. If you had any score predictions or questions or anything like that, let me know. Otherwise, I will get out of your guys' hair until halftime. And the post game, we are doing a live chat on both sites. It's the same live chat. So if you go to VikingsTerritory.com, purplePTSD.com, I don't know why I'm doing a call to action when it's like, if you're not chatting right now, why don't you spend 5 minutes, get on our site, create a guest account, and not chat there. I think I'm bad at this. Oh no. But we'll see. Wouldn't it be great though? I mean, this isn't great analysis anyway, but wouldn't it just be amazing if they pulled off this upset? How happy we'd be. We'd have another week of football to look forward to. All the articles we could write. Absolutely just shitting on the Saints. That's a world I someday want to live in. I don't know how much deep you guys get into like reading about like physics and simulation theory or theories of infinite parallel universes, but essentially with an infinite amount of parallel universes, it's like there's a universe where every single thing has gone exactly the same in my life and everyone else's lives up until this moment, and then I just did this, and the other universe didn't do that. It's that small, but that's how big infinite is. There's an infinite universe out there where the Vikings are the Patriots, essentially, and that's really why I built the sites, is to hopefully get enough money together to blast a hole in the space-time continuum. Man, this show went off the rails faster than usual. I think I'm just trying to not get too nervous, I guess. I don't know. I just have this weird feeling like... Oh, there. Okay, I'm seeing some comments now from Stitz. Yeah, wouldn't it be great, Stitz, though? Wouldn't it be great to beat them in their own dump? I mean, I'm sure they're... Oh, that was going to be a horrible joke. I was going to say, like, if you've seen Saving Private Ryan, when they were using those, like, Wisconsin Dells sort of things to ride up to the beaches in Normandy, and then they'd open the doors and those machine guns would just mow them down, and they were showing the the build up to that, and some guys were shaking, some were throwing up from the nerves, some were drinking or whatever, some were praying. Um, I thought I'd be a lot more nervous than I am, but I'm calm, and maybe that's subconsciously I'm resigned to our fate, but I just have a feeling that we have a really good shot in this game. And Tang is still working on changing his password. I was gonna save this as a surprise, but I made you a moderator of our message boards, Tang, 'cause you're such a cool guy. That's not even a present. That's just me giving you responsibility you didn't ask for. Um, but I'm a little. If you can't figure out how to change your password and I can't either, maybe we're not the best guys to be doing this. I don't know. There's red flags everywhere. Um, I won't judge you guys, but if you tell me what you think really quickly, your score prediction is, you don't have to say, well, Vikings, this or that if you really don't believe it. My prediction, and I'm going to stay with it despite all the stuff I said about my confidence going up, because I just seen a lot of Vikings games in my 35 years, and I can see this happening in my mind. I'm a very big person on visualizing things in my mind, and like I can't visualize the Vikings winning a Super Bowl, for example. Which probably means they'll do it this season, and I can play this clip back and laugh at it. But I can't, if I can't visualize certain things, I have a hard time seeing them actually taking place. But I really can see the Vikings going up early, by a score or two, and then this not dissimilar from the 2017 game, maybe holding them to 17, 10 points, 10, 3, 6, 9, 10, 12. You guys know how football scores work. Come to About the Labor for football score breakdowns, and I could see it being a relatively high scoring game and the Vikings losing on a walk-off field goal or something. So my score prediction was 41-38 on Morning Joe's. I'm going to stick with that. But the good news, I guess, if there is bad news, is that we'll know within the first drive or maybe two if the Vikings are going to blow it by getting too cute in the coaching room. And so maybe that'll open up our afternoons to find new hobbies for the offseason and moving forward, and at least until they promote Kubiak to head offensive coordinator, we could cross-stitch together. We could, I don't know, start a pickup basketball league with disadvantaged youths. Anyway, the game starts in about 8-9 minutes. I'm hoping some of you will hop on over to the live chat. I'll be there with some of my steely-eyed zingers, and I'll be back at halftime. Hopefully, visualize it with me. The power of collective thought with good news. Skol.